Mr. Gertz, thanks for your service for U.S. SOCOM. So what are some of the takeaways that you've had from SOCOM's approach to rapid acquisition, and do you think it's realistic to apply those lessons learned to military services?
Absolutely. I think a couple of those key things are rapid decision-making, creating venues to get exposed to all the technical capabilities and performance that are out there, like SOFWERX. I think it is having the trust of Congress and a relationship to be flexible, and I think it's empowering the program executive officers to manage a portfolio, not manage individual programs.
Appreciate that. Mr. Sankar, Mr. Diller, Mr. Sankar, we'll start with you first. So what's been your company's experience having navigated the Pentagon's accounting and invoicing standards, regulatory requirements, terms of payment, all that? How has that affected your ability to do business with the DoD? And you said you've been there, I believe, a couple of decades, Mr. Sankar. So maybe in the early days as a smaller company, it maybe much more intimidating at that point. So if you want to go back in history a little bit, what was it like as a startup trying to do business with DoD?
It was quite complicated. I can't tell you the number of times we submitted invoices and somehow didn't fill out the right, tick box somewhere, and that meant the invoices would get kicked back. People always say you can count on the government to pay its bills. I think you can in the end, but perhaps not always on time, just given how Byzantine the process is. So I think it's not commercial. That's kind of the reality of it, and we should be thinking about where the divergence from commercial standards helps the taxpayer, helps the government, and where is a vestige of how we've built the system over time. I think it does act as a deterrent to new entrants coming in.
So for the small business folks that are out there listening, what would payment terms be like for a small business, perhaps in the early days? What would be expected?
Well, everything is paid in arrears, of course, so
right.
You can't structure it any other way. Maybe the payment terms are quite reasonable, net 30, something like this.
And then what's the difference between that and reality?
Yeah, you could probably add a couple months on that.
Ouch. Well, I'm glad you survived. Mr. Diller?
Sure. We have one contract right now with the government that is a cost accounting. If we can avoid it, we will not do that again. It does not serve, I don't think, the government well for this type of work, and it certainly does not serve the small business well. And so I think going back to this question of the reviewer versus the doer, we still have failed to get the Department of Defense into the 21st century to digitize the reviewer part at a pace of relevance so that there can be more doers. And that work still is lacking significantly. It's slowing down the government, it is creating waste, and it is keeping us from getting the best technologies in the hands of our warfighter.
Thank you. Mr. Gertz, acquisition professionals, they often cite the high costs, the robust penalties, and disincentives to taking programmatic risks. And I think it results in a culture of compliance over innovation. You've mentioned that a little bit this morning. So in contrast, in the non-DoD world, many industry-leading companies, they celebrate failure and they adopt an iterative approach to learning quickly. How might program managers be able to achieve rapid iteration while minimizing the risks of failure? It seems to me, if you want to address the cultural issue here, and I don't know if it's a class or I've heard somebody ask, what tools do you need? I think it's more than that. I think it's a cultural issue. So if you agree or disagree, please weigh in on that a little bit too.
It is absolutely a cultural issue. There's training you can do to expose people to the tools, but if they're in the wrong culture, they won't take advantage of the tools. And so I think it goes back to being outcome focused, having unity of command, who's in charge, and then holding that person accountable. And in the SOCOM world, there was more of that than there was, and there was flexibility. You can create strategies where you'll have rivalries and multiple performers because you can act very efficiently. And then if a company performs well and has a product the operator wants, you buy more of them. If they don't, you buy less and go to a different product. That doesn't align well with a centrally planned, where 30% of our program elements are less than $10 million a year, where you send 47,000 pages of budget documentations and then you get hauled up in front of a staffer if you make a decision that's the right decision but doesn't align with that bureaucracy. We've got to get to a better spot in that regard.
Thank you.